Hello, welcome back to my channel. So Heather is currently about to be 29 weeks pregnant and she's still living in a tent with her boyfriend Xavier. And really, it's just been the same old thing. Her talking in circles every single day. Her trying on clothes at Target, even though she claims she hasn't had an actual shower in over 6 months. And we all remember the infamous tire iron incident that happened a few years ago. And honestly, I wasn't really believing what she was saying because she had these bruises on her head and she had to go to the hospital where she was transported by ambulance. And I thought, honestly, because that's when she was doing a lot of duster back then, and she was like posting videos and lives of her driving around talking about getting pancakes from IHOP as she's doing duster in the car, and literally this tire iron incident happened around the same time. So I thought she had literally just did some duster, probably passed out, fell over and hit her head on the curb. It's just hard to know what to believe when it comes to Heather anymore. And I do want to give a shout out to we_r_BCG. I'll leave their Instagram linked in the description. But they're a Heather Exposed page on Instagram, and they actually got a hold of the police report from the tire iron incident, which confirms that she did get beat with a tire iron. So the police report says, and also just a quick side note, it says narrative at the top, and I bet that's where Heather got the word narrative and started using that for all her receipts from this report. But it says on August 20th of 2021, 2 officers were dispatched to Jet Bright Car Wash for a reported battery. So the dispatch advised they received several calls reporting a female subject being struck repeatedly by a male Hispanic subject wearing a black shirt and khaki pants. So while the officers were on their way, the dispatch provided update information saying that the male subject now had a crowbar and was striking the female subject in the head. So then both subjects went across the street, and then the officers showed up at this Speedway gas station, and upon arrival, they observed a male Hispanic subject, later identified as Juan Madero Romero, standing near the southwest corner of the property facing to the east, and the subject met the description previously provided by dispatch, and he was holding a long black in color object, later identified as a tire iron, in his left hand. A crowd of several people had gathered within 15 to 20 feet, and they appeared to be blocking the suspect from leaving the property. And the 4 officers on the scene approached the suspect from the west, and the suspect was given verbal commands to drop the tire iron. He was acting like he was going to drop the tire iron for a second, but he didn't. He kind of leaned over, but he still had the tire iron gripped in his hands. So one of the officers came up behind the suspect, grabbed the tire iron from his grip, and then he put him under arrest. So they requested dispatch and an ambulance to come to the scene. At the car wash, the officer met Heather, who had been escorted into the North Lake Fire Department ambulance. I visually inspected Heather and observed she had abrasions to her face, head, and dried blood on her hands. She was crying and visibly upset. I asked Heather where her injuries were, and she said her head. The hair on the right side of Heather's head was pulled back and revealed an approximately 1 to 2 inch long gash in her scalp. Heather also said she felt pain in her left front rib cage area, and she pulled up her shirt to show the left side of her rib cage, which appeared to be red with possible light swelling. He then interviewed with Heather, and Heather said that the male suspect's name is Juan Pablo, and she did not know Juan Pablo's last name. So Heather met Juan Pablo the night of April 19, 2021 at a McDonald's in Chicago at an unknown time of the night, and then she invited Juan to get into her car with her, the Cadillac she had back in the day that she had on the show with. Heather then drove her car to the Export Gym in Melrose Park, Illinois, and Heather and Juan Pablo slept in her car in the Export parking lot overnight because Heather is homeless. At an unknown time in the morning of April 20th, 2021, Juan Pablo woke Heather up, and he told Heather the bad people found them and they needed to leave right away. So Heather drove her vehicle to a laundromat near North Avenue and 25th Avenue in Melrose Park, and Heather and Juan went into the laundromat and they put some of their clothes into the machines to wash them. According to Heather, at this time, Juan Pablo again made statements to Heather about the bad people looking for them in the race. So Juan Pablo did not clarify what he meant by bad people or the race. So at this point, Heather was just getting bad vibes from this dude. He was starting to make her feel uncomfortable. So she asked Juan Pablo if she could take him home or drop him off somewhere. So he told Heather that he had family in Geneva, I hope I'm saying that right, Illinois. So Heather told Juan Pablo that she could take him to the train station so he could get there. And Juan told Heather that he didn't want to do that. And Heather then drove to the Jet Bright car wash, and she decided to get a car wash. So at the car wash location she was at, if you get a car wash, then you can vacuum your car for free. So after she was done with her car wash, she pulled up to a stall and she started vacuuming out her whole car. So then she said this Juan Pablo dude kept making comments about the race, and Heather was concerned about this, and she thought maybe he was affiliated with a gang or something. So she said that she was going to drive him to the train station so he could get on the train and go see his family. And Juan Pablo said he did not want to go to Geneva, Illinois to see his family, and he said that he wanted to live in Heather's car with her. So Heather was like, I'm sorry, dude, you can't do that. I need to drop you off right now. And after he heard that, Heather claims he just started swinging at her and hitting her in her head, in her stomach, just all over the place. And then after he started beating her pretty bad, he ran to her car and grabbed a tire iron and came back and started beating her in the head, in the back of the head with the tire iron. And she's very lucky she survived that. So the officer ended up making contact with Heather while she was in the emergency room, and he wanted to know more about her background. And she said that she does not have a permanent address, and she bounces around between staying with family, friends, or sleeping in her car. And she said that some of her family is in the Melrose Park area, so she's familiar with the area. At the time, Heather said she was sleeping in her car, and she cleans and showers at the Export Fitness. And she said for employment, she delivers food for Grubhub. So the officer asked her about the incident, and she said that she was driving her Cadillac, and she was just driving, and she stopped her car at a red light, and she saw this random dude just sitting there, and he looked like he was homeless and needed help. So she introduced herself to him, and she's like, hey, do you want to hop in? And he jumps in the car. And then she said that they ended up going to the gym from there, and she tried to go inside and get this dude a shower, but since he didn't have a membership, they wouldn't let him come in. So they just went out to her car and slept out in the parking lot. And she said that she ended up going to the back seat of the car and laying down so she could try to go to sleep, but she said this dude sat in the front passenger seat. So Heather said she felt uncomfortable because she claims this dude stayed up all night long and just stared forward, and she said that he seemed like he was on drugs. She didn't see him do any, but the way he was acting was definitely giving her the impression he was. So Heather was asked why she had the tire iron in her vehicle, and she said she keeps it in there since she sleeps in there and lives in there. She wants it in there for her safety. The cop asked Heather if she was under the influence of any drugs or alcohol. She said no. He also asked her if she was a prostitute, which she said no. And he asked her if she had did anything to be the aggressor in this situation, which she said no. And he's like, okay, would you like to pursue charges? And she said yes. So he's like, okay, so next we're gonna go get some pictures and come back with the lineup, and you can choose which guy did it out of the lineup, and we can go from there. So a couple officers showed up to the hospital Heather was at and did the photo lineup, and they said they went and spoke with Heather and verified that she wanted to pursue this matter and verified that she was not an aggressor, which she claims she wasn't. So one officer pulled out the photo lineup on the laptop, and the other officer turned his back while Heather picked out which one was the aggressor in this situation. And as soon as they were done with the lineup, Heather revealed that she had COVID. So that was a stressful situation for everybody because then they had to go back and figure out who Heather had been in contact with and contact those officers. And then this dude that had beat up Heather, he had to be in lockdown for the next 3 weeks after that. And then after Heather found out she had COVID and after she did this photo lineup in the hospital, she ended up getting 5150'd. And I remember her going live after the tire iron incident. She went live when she was in the ambulance showing off her face. Then she hopped off the live and then she came back again when she was at the hospital. And when she was at the hospital, she was literally arguing with the doctors and the nurses. And it was so long ago, I can't remember what exactly she was arguing with them about. But finally, they're like, ma'am, you need to turn your phone off. You're about to get 5150. And then we didn't hear from Heather for like the next week. I definitely feel like there's more of the story. I kind of feel like Heather at least had to do something to piss the dude off. You know, some people have mental health issues, and I think that's could very well be the case, and he just blew up on Heather, and that's why some people are homeless for a reason, and she just picked the wrong guy to mess with that day. But I also, you know, we see how Heather talks to everybody on the phone and how she treats police and citizens. I don't think that she was just being an angel and being cool, calm, and collected with him before he popped off on her. I do think that was nice of her to try to help this guy out because here she is now in the same position as him, but she had been like this before in the past, and she's like, you know, I always wish somebody would help me out, so I'm going to do the same thing now that I'm in the position. I got a car he can at least sleep in. But you know, she effed around and found out. You got to be careful because some of these people are homeless for a reason because they're a danger to others, and it's just sad because they really don't have many places for these people to go and they just throw them on the streets. But that's it for this video, guys. So the tire iron story really did happen. I don't know if we're getting the 100% full story from Heather, but her side is shown in this police report by We Are BCG. So check them out on Instagram if you want any more Heather tea. But that's it for this video. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.